been a hot minute.
It has.
Well, I mean, for us, not for you. Vivian had a business trip, so we haven't been able to sit down and record some of this in a little while. Of course, my brain has been thinking for a long time now, like, how does this go wrong for Keiichi?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, where do you think this might go from here? Keiichi's got his totally awesome murder plan. He seems to have things on lock, so, like, what could go wrong?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that could go wrong here. One, well, before we do that, I want to point out that there's a very important difference between this chapter and chapter 1. Because both chapters feature Keiichi killing people, right? But his state of mind in this chapter is very different.
Yeah.
In chapter 1, at a minimum, he has convinced himself that that he is acting in self-defense. Whether or not that is truly the case, or whether he's being, purposely repressing something, that is what he's convinced his active mind, that he's acting in self-defense. In this chapter, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is premeditated murder. Premediated? Premediated. Whatever.
Holy shit, have I been saying that word wrong my entire life?
I'm pretty sure it's premediated, but I could be wrong about that. Because I said premeditated, and I was like, wait, does that make sense? I don't know. Someone in the comments will get mad at us if that's...
Yeah, that's a real TIL moment.
Because this is Higurashi, I'm thinking about the ways in which this then goes wrong. And there's a couple of ways. One, his trap relies on the specific person he's looking for walking by. Right? So there's a version of events where Keiichi kills the first person that walks by, buries it without ever letting himself get a good look at the body, and it turns out to be the wrong person. There's a version of this where Keiichi kills someone, but has ran his mouth to enough people that he's immediately found out. There's a version of this where everything goes perfectly according to plan and Keiichi is horrified at how easy it was. And there's a version of this where everything goes perfectly according to plan and Sadako gets blamed for another mysterious death surrounding her.
Ooh. That would suck, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there are so many ways that this could absolutely suck. Even in the versions where it goes right, like Keiichi's belief in the structures of society that are meant to stop stuff like this from happening has been irrevocably shaken, right? At a minimum, he then looks at himself and be like, wait, if it was this easy for me to get away with this, then what does that say about the other murders that have been happening over the past couple years? And realizes that he's truly at home amongst a den of murders. Or it goes comically poorly and he kills the wrong person. Or he's immediately found. Like, there's no way in which this ends with just everything going right and everything being hunky-dory. Because at a minimum, Mion will know what he did.
Sure seems like it. He did kind of say a whole lot.
Yep, and then made sure to say, hey, could you make sure you bring... Or at least to... I'm pretty sure he said that to Shion and not Mion, given her reaction to Satoshi's name. But...
One or the other of them knows,
right.
so probably the other one does too.
Either way, the Sonozakis are aware of what's happening. Another interesting thing that goes differently is that if, for example, Tomatake no longer dies, that could be taken to mean that, oh, Shion now knows that someone else is going to take care of the killing on this year for her. So she could just let that happen and wash her hands clean of it and deal with them next year.
That's a good thought.
So, again, assuming that was Shion that, and I'm pretty sure it's Shion that Keiichi was on the phone with, given her reaction specifically to Satoshi's name. So yeah, a couple things I'm watching out for.
All right.
So let's see where this goes from here.
Probably normal places.
Probably normal. There was no one at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy construction machine I'd hidden the metal bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone had found the bat and hidden it somewhere else as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? If it really wasn't there, then... The sensation of chilled metal. It was still here where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He'd waited here patiently for me. I don't know if that's the way to take that, but...
Seems healthy.
Sorry for the wait, Satoshi. It's been a long time coming. Are you prepared for this? Through the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know. I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself. Right on, Satoshi. Let's show him a bad time. Satoshi's back got lighter and lighter, and fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Next I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Sadako's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Couldn't I just use the school phone? But as I thought the room was locked up and I couldn't get in... Shit. I'm so naive. Should have at least figured this part out. I couldn't call him. And just for that, was today all over? I'm sorry, Satoshi. And just as I cursed my own naivete, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man, the one from the Forest Service field office. Why, wasn't today a Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Interesting. Okay. So this is something that happens on the day of Watanagashi, huh? The Forest Service guy, who doesn't get a Sprite, but who Keiichi recognizes, comes to the school and gets something. The forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. The best possible coincidence, and it had to be Satoshi who saved me. The metal bat, through just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. I felt the man headed into the forest office storehouse, which was so far in the back students weren't allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the door opened slowly as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went inside. Tiptoed along silently, stealthily, and made it to the teacher's lounge. Have you even gotten his phone number yet? At no point did Keiichi stop to get his phone number, so lucky he gets to go in here where it's probably written down somewhere. That was the only place with a phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out the school gate. He's met Tomatake in this version of events, so if it was Tomatake or someone that we know, he would have said their name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit more to make sure the silence was the real deal, then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Sadako's house's phone number out of my pocket. The number in the class directory for Sadako had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. Touched the dial with my fingers, and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night, now that I had my finger on a dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be best. More importantly, to say it straight and not sound suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. The call sound. Would Sadako's uncle pick it up? Now of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick it up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Sadako if he didn't, whirled around in a vortex. Also a good thing for Keiichi calling from the school instead of somewhere else, because it's going to make the person who came to the school take the blame for it. Because while you can't see what number's calling you, I wonder if, I'm pretty sure *69 or the equivalent of it
Yeah, they've almost certainly got a way of telling where the call came from at this time.
Right, exactly. They've got a way of telling where the call came from. So it's lucky for Keiichi that it happens to be from a pretty neutral place where someone else was.
Hello?
It was the voice of a grumpy man like he had just woken up. He picked up.
Hello?
Say your name so I know you're Hojo, you asshole. It would be terrible if I got it wrong. I made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go. This here is the Shishibone Okinomiya Police Station. Am I speaking to the Hojo residents? I was changing my voice, but did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police?
Oh, yes, this is Hojo.
We currently have your daughter, Sadako Hojo, here with us.
What? Sadako? What did that brat do?
He fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words. I can explain the particulars once you've arrived. Would you mind coming to the station right away?
Right now? I already took a bath myself, so I don't really want to go out like this, though.
What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath? Yes, right away.
Right away? Jeez, man, what the heck did Sadako do?
I'll explain once you get here. I'll be waiting. Thank you for your assistance.
1 second. I don't know where the police station is. Where am I going?
You moron, what the hell? The Okinomiya police station? You don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? A greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke.
Oh, next to the fire station, right? That's pretty far.
Thank goodness he remembered on his own for me. I didn't care where the police station was, so long as he left his house to get there. Then we'll be waiting here.
Oh, wait. Who am I asking for once I get there? What's your name?
On top of that, he wanted to know my name? Just leave your goddamn house already. Maebashi. Excuse me. That was close. Almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. Managed to change the last syllable of it, but with the receiver down like I was running away. My fingers were trembling and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. Why wouldn't he just take his car? Keiichi, have you thought about this for a moment? Why are you assuming that he's going to walk and leave through that one particular path? I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had finally been put into motion. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. But I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Sadako's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He learned there was no one at the station named Maebashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukatas. Must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But it didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area might not have known much about me. That didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible to control my breathing and ambush the man. How come we don't get pictures of the main cast in yukatas for the festival?
I know, right?
Come on! I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up Satoshi's bat, which I had just left hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gotten here. Or maybe he went right out after the phone call and passed by here already. I couldn't figure out which it was. It was set upon by an indescribable impatience. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact that he would die. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? Figured it'd be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed, or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he just went a little farther, he'd cross into that thicket and appear in front of me. Took a moment to make sure it was him. And then when I had, I put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. A few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Sadako's uncle's bike. Without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Sadako's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake here, was I? I looked at its characteristics again. Its color, shape, and most of all the man's clothes and face. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. Sadako, now. Your Nini will end it all right? Okay, so he's saying he did look at his face, and he's like, yeah, okay. Because he has seen Mr. Hojo's face.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as he's looking at the face and Mr. Hojo doesn't have a twin brother. We know he's got a brother, but as long as he doesn't have a twin brother. I'm looking over at Vivian's face for any kind of reaction. She's giving me nothing. We know his brother is dead, so let's go, Satoshi. Yeah. Whoosh! I jumped out of the thicket. Used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally, it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning, it stopped. Her uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. I know this isn't caught on the capture, but it bothers me that even the black bar is inverted here.
Yeah, the black bar is color inverted to a bright white bar on the edges of the 4-3 crop area.
Oh, right, I was also doing serious Keiichi voice now.
Yeah.
My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning now. Now was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away, like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and I let my hands dangle at my sides. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now, Keiichi Maebara? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape, scrape. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, then another towards Sadako's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes, at this moment, this guy had lost permission to live. I had just rescinded it. So he mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Sadako's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live.
That feel when Kei-chan revokes your existence permission.
Uh-huh. I could feel the cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. That hurt. That's all it took? For it to hurt? Sadako's heart hurt much more. And now you are going to feel that. And with your life, I will make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute. 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 Wham! Utterly calmly, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot, at least during that first moment I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless. And if he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was a defensive reaction all humans made like machines. He'd use both hands to cover his head so he couldn't pick himself off the heap he was on the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he'd covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. If he covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. By just delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Her uncle skillfully pulled himself off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he'd made after seeing my face and deciding whether to fight me. Right now, he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from the more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that unlucky. And the odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant that he would run in a direction where no one else was. He was fleeing into strange geography like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded, and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow, and I dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, my mind, my body were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I had ever felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. It felt natural, continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Or perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it.
Or maybe Keiichi's a sociopath.
I didn't struggle or grow tired at all during chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, his shoulder, and his head, even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten. Like an herbivore running with all its might, trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing, without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Sadoko. Oh, quick save. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. I'm clicking the wrong spot. My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine. Run as much as you'd like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt. Your lungs will feel about to burst. Your head will hurt from a lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on the terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran, but he was chased. His head bashed with the metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying, and pleas for forgiveness to someone I didn't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now run, 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 run! Fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you never should have shown up. If you never showed up, our lives would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you only saw at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, target practice. Mion would surely make it into a competition, and we as a club would have a grand time. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance. Everyone would say how fun it was, and it would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, funny, warm times spent with friends. That would have happened. But it didn't. And now it was all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that would be what the world was like if you had never shown up. You were the obstacle. You were the mistake. You were the heresy in that world. But I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so this last week never happened. Tonight was the Watanagashi Festival. The holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It looked like the Higurashi had stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one. The hour of atonement is at an end. The Higurashi have stopped their crying, and thus it is the end. The end. The end. The end. And you don't have to run away anymore. Die. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Ugh! Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final, killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening he left as his knees gave out underneath him. I remained alert for a few more moments, and then thud, thud. He planted both knees in the ground, and then fell forward, burying his head in the ground. I'd been holding back my ragged breathing, but now it all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light, and unable to maintain my balance, I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try to guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood and drew toward him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realized right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. I thought, if he might be faking it, then I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. After all, there's only one way to examine a corpse and be perfectly certain if it is alive or dead. I fought back my ragged breathing again, and then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leapt like a bow, but he did not try to cover his head. And then once again I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hits gradually started to feel different, and it started to spray a filthy dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely, and with certainty, killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Sadako's uncle, nor any pity towards Sadako herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It had begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's bat like that, it wasn't bent very much at all. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood, but that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that I'd ended Sadako's uncle for all eternity. All right, Keiichi. All right, calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be as cold as ice. I still needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply followed the man as far as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was oh so very dark out. I hadn't even noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now I realized how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight. I looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was. This is... oh no. This was the one road connecting Hinamizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Sadako's house. Did the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anyone at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There's no way I could carry the body that far. And aside from that, the bike the man took here was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. Police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate. And they wouldn't just leave it at that. But thankfully the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first. And I wanted to get the shovel back from where I left it next to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I'd have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour, and it was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle was still over where I left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he'd never existed and regain the peaceful times we'd had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while I let my desire have its way. After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, Actually seemed like it'd been lying there for a very long time. The plan was to drop it into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here, but to the bike up. I didn't think it would be so heavy. I was a little surprised. Once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll along. Still, pushing all this thing all the way to the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times of how far away it was. This motorcycle. I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it'd be basically the same as a bicycle, right? Wanted to get me to the swamp quickly? A plan suggested by my exhaustion. The anxiety at getting on a motorcycle for the first time withdrew. I turned the key and then you just kicked this pedal, right? Yeah. It's on. And then I gripped the handlebars, first the right, then the left. Maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. I lost it for a second, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply, right? Certainly
Keiichi
no.
does a sick bike stunt directly into the swamp and vanishes forever.
Oh, man. This is a great time to learn about hydroplaning.
Yeah. Definitely the middle of a murder is when you want to be picking up a whole new vehicle skill for the first time in your life.
Yup. Let's try that again. This time slowly, gently. That time it went well. Good, and certainly do hope I don't leave any obvious tracks in the mud. Then again, if it's, maybe it'll get washed away. Maybe that's working. I don't actually know what the over-under is on that.
Yeah.
If it wasn't raining, the tracks would almost certainly stay there. But if it's raining, maybe it fortunately covers his tracks for him.
Suppose it depends how much rain and where the tracks are.
It's a strange time to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Very odd, but I got used to it quickly. Mion once told me you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was certainly right. This was pretty easy. I needed to throw the metal bat in the swamp as well. But I didn't know how I would pack the bat onto the motorcycle. Without much other choice, I stuffed it into the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. I put the tip down the seat of my pants and hunched over it wouldn't fall out. I got on the back and this time got going without any difficulty. I carefully pressed the button labeled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. Probably really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any way of seeing at this point, and I had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. The rain came down on me. I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way toward the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They were all either soaked through with the rain and hurrying on their ways home, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday I might have been wary of these passerby, but right now it didn't seem to be much cause for concern. In fact, it would probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though, I started to think of that idea as naive, brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed a steep hill. On a bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient, aren't they? For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onagafuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Still, it wasn't like the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. I like to imagine it's got that one sign. You know the one sign that's out front of the cave? The cave that's mostly underwater that people like to free dive in, even though it's a really bad idea.
What?
That has you know the one I'm talking about? It's got a big, dramatic picture of a Grim Reaper on it and says, "Your life isn't worth it."
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, a cave that people dive in despite the fact they shouldn't and it kills them, that's like every cave people dive in.
No, there's I'll show it to you. There's a very specific sign I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I do know that sign.
Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found out you were playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out there sometimes to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talked before about how they'd actually go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid and just tie it to a fishing line and throw it, and all the crayfish would come running. As I got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. Really? That's an interesting thing. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp had waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff-like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of the Watanagashi, Sadako's uncle's corpse was found in a thicket by the road leading to town. and Keiichi Maebara went missing. People would whisper I'd been demoned away. The 5th year's curse would be a pretty half-baked one, honestly. Got off the bike, twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. Let go just when it seemed like it would drag me forward. The bike shot off a cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a far fainter splash than I'd imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't even make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It's pretty heavy after all. It'd be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp, and would be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down into the land of demons, but I did have a tinge of regret about Satoshi's bat. I washed the bat with muddy water. The gore sticking to it came off easily. I'd sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. I started to feel more like returning it to the locker from before, so it could continue to keep watch over Sadako. Satoshi, I probably misunderstood you. Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I am absolutely convinced now you were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Sadako. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know that it was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that peace and lost it within days. So, I swear to you that I will live life to the fullest from now on. I'll live it enough for the both of us. I will live on as though this week, this day had never happened, but I will never forget this short time we shared together for as long as I live. I don't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who had protected that same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved of its own accord, and the bat I had hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. It traveled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. That surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment I regretted having thrown it, but I realized that might have been what Satoshi had wanted. You're right. I still can't let myself give in to emotion just yet. I would return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. Seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted, and I had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me with only the advice that I needed to finish this off soon, then fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss.
I love how much of this is Keiichi discovers how much work actually it is to do a murder.
Someone?
Like,
Yep.
In the last episode or two, he had the revelation of how easy it is, how terrifyingly easy it is to end someone's life. And now he's having the revelation of, well, but also, it's really hard.
Well, to be fair, what he was saying wasn't that... What he was saying is still true. And what he was saying, it is extremely easy to end someone's life. It's getting away with it that's...
But even the ending the life part, like, it took a lot more strikes with that bat than he planned on, didn't it?
True.
That's
true.
Turns out it's not as elegant and simple in practice as it would seem.
I returned to the path I had ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Huh. I almost forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here as well. Not good, not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Keiichi Maebara. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole in which I'd hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I'd hidden it deep in the forest, not wanting it to be seen. Now everything was black and night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness, and realized just how big this annoyance really was. Wait, you can't be serious. The sweat the rain washed away before came back up to my skin. Deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach. The fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I had been able to kill him right away like I'd planned, I didn't know if I'd still could have buried him without a problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction and might actually get lost in there. That may have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root, or sprain a muscle. Oh, right. My house's storage room. There was another shovel there, the same fold-up kind. Couldn't I go back to the house, get the shovel, give up on finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Maebara is written on it. But it seemed like an unusual item from an important variety store made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything either. I should give up and go back to the storage room. And there was an electric lantern in there, right? If I used that for light, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark. Could I light the way with just the lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark night. I couldn't discard the possibility of it drawing eyes, and I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I'd left the body there for a long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. For now, the most important thing was to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? If they found that, I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First, I'd go back to the storage room at home. I'd get the lantern. Now that it's gotten this dark, I might still need a light to dig a hole for the body, too. I'd get the other shovel, and I'd deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel, bring it back. I had to do at least that much, but I was so tired. But complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything will have been for naught. At some point, I had sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured, lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, none had ever been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. That's a fucking chapter to come back on. God damn, Keiichi. Not to mention you can't be seen by anyone until you get yourself cleaned up.
Yeah, like he had a bat covered in gore hidden down his shirt.
Right? I don't care how much rain there is, you look like ass right now. The lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw that it was almost 7 p.m.
It's practically morning. It's 7 p.m. It's not even night yet.
Oh my god. I thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. I'm surprised at how messed up my biological clock had gotten just from this one night. There's a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The worlds between here and what was beyond those curtains were so different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. I'd still be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I'd had with all my friends. And then, even though they made a hot meal for me, would have eaten way too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, gone back to my room. No doubt I'd crawl into my futon and let myself easily fall asleep. But right now, I was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak streetlights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family, and there was neither warm food nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body exposed to the cold rain, I knew that I simply had to spur myself on to accomplish what I must. I realized quickly how timid and cowardly I was becoming. For what purpose did I need to kill someone so badly that it was worth feeling this terrible? I'd lost sight of that purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Sadako and executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. He would never, ever hurt Sadako again. We all thought frantically for days on end about Sadako's problem, and Finally, with no other options, we gave up, and I had solved it in one night. By myself, without anyone's help. Right about now, Sadako would be making dinner for her uncle despite not knowing when he'd return, and she might be spending the night trembling in fear of whether he'd yell at her for how it tasted, but her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath, nor let him make her feel sad. I see. I did it. I successfully saved Sadako. All I'd been thinking about for a long time was killing that man, and I'd forgotten the feeling that it was actually all to save her. I did. I did something good. That's right. I did something good, didn't I? I felt hot tears coming from my eyes. And that's when I first realized the exhaustion I'd been feeling was actually guilt. The blade of guilt for a while now had just been scraping away with its tip, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much it was painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at saving Sadako. I didn't know why really anymore. I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there for a while, coming to terms with those warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. All right, Keiichi Maebara. That's enough. There's nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both my body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It was only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. There was the indisputable fact that I had saved Sadako. One day we would surely be rewarded. One day I would be proud of how distressing an enterprise I had undertaken to get Sadako's smile back. And so that I could wait for that day, I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I left it undone, everything I'd accomplished today would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. Then I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth my energy from my core again. How long did I plan on spacing out for? This isn't the time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse at this very moment. A pessimistic thought was proof of the very natural emotion of fear had returned to me. As I allowed the fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and the lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate that I remembered what it looked like around the streetlight the body was near. With how dark it was quite possible I wouldn't have been able to look for it either. Didn't realize that when I left the place. The idea of memorizing the spot hadn't even crossed my mind. And that's why I had to call it fortunate I managed to get back to the body like this. The corpse was now located in a big muddy puddle. Half the thing had already sunk to the swamp-like pool of water. I only realized afterward, but there was an unused irrigation channel right nearby that clogged with fallen leaves and dirt. And there was rainwater flowing in from there. My shoes had been washed with water for a long time now, so without any hesitation, I stepped into the puddle. Luckily, the whole muddy stream washed it away. I couldn't leave any slight traces like bloodstains. The rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying very close attention, then turned off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments. And once I managed to reach the streetlight on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was even looser here than I'd thought, and the shovel's tip easily slid inside. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. It almost felt like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water kept flowing in and covering the hole. It wasn't going as well as I had hoped. I dug, and water would go in, so I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way for me to measure it was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine. It's all right, don't be disheartened. Just keep digging. Occasionally a car would come by on the road, and I'd hurry to hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. They wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but I still couldn't help but hide. What was I really scared of? What I was really scared of wasn't quite that one of those cars would coincidentally happen to witness me here. It was that the distance I could spot cars from was getting gradually shorter. At first, I noticed the splashing sounds from really far away as cars drove through them. Started noticing them less and less, and with the car that just passed me by, I didn't notice it until its headlights were upon me. I felt my senses growing duller by the second. If someone were to take a peek in secret, as I was burying this body, even at the worst possible time, perhaps I wouldn't even notice. The moment I thought that, I took a good look all around me. I roused all my half-asleep senses and searched for signs of a presence nearby. What if I found out someone was spying on me from the trees? A carnivorous feeling snarled at me, glaring. Well, if there was, then I would dig another hole. I'd come this far already, hadn't I? In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much more I had to pay. I didn't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but it was definitely a fervently glaring one. My five senses reached the conclusion that no one was present. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief. How long had I been digging this mud out of here? It was deep enough for it to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough. Maybe I'd throw the corpse in as a test. I swallowed, getting my breathing under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse. So instead, I dragged it by the feet into the hole. It took more than just a waggle and a tug to do it, but of course it did. Considering this man's weight was easily 80 kilograms. I rallied all my strength and dragged him, and at this point my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving again had vanished long ago. His body fit perfectly. It was more than deep enough. Alright then, let's bury him. Quickly now, quickly. As long as I did a perfect job of burying it here, everything would be over. I would hide it in the hole, and none of this would ever have happened. When I realized I had only had a little farther to go to finish everything, I was racked with pointless anxiety, like I was in a race against time. It's like I was absorbed in a delusion that if I didn't bury the body quickly, I might come back to life. In any case, in a great rush, I poured mud and dirt into the hole. If I didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Until now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill them, but not anymore. I was arrested with such absolute fear that if someone saw me, it would all be over. So I finished the work off. It was a total mess. Splish, splash, squish, squash. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. I was completely covered in mud at that point. The rain washed the mud off my body, but not off my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, fear, with rain and sweat and mud. My shoulders heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat down in the mud. I was so exhausted that I wanted to lie down right there and sleep. It was over. This time, for real, it was over. The man was now in the bottom of the wet dirt. Right at this moment, there were traces that this place had been dug up, but the rain and flowing muddy water would completely cover it all within moments. Yes, it was all over. I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it, you motherfucker! And then I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrops pelted my face without mercy, but I didn't care. After staying there for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. So, let's go home. You already buried the whole thing. So now it's like it's never happened. It never happened. So there's no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. I considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. I didn't really need to take it apart anyway. Dragging the shovel behind me, I headed toward the light. I stood up my bike and had been laying in the grass by the road. I didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel into the front basket. Put the shovel down in the back of my shirt like I'd done with the baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner of it was on my back, making it very painful. Plus, if I relaxed my posture even a little, it would fall out behind me. But I ended up having to carry the shovel in my left hand and riding my bike using only my right. Not only was I in a state of total exhaustion, this was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars, I was swaying to and fro like a drunk, but I didn't care. Even swaying like this, I got a little closer to home every time I pedaled. I saw 2 lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh, no, I needed to get out of the way. From far away in the shadows of the darkness, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights washed over me. The driver made a short honk of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I have to get out of the way. Kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted and couldn't do anything. Wobble, wobble, wobble. I meandered about, not going to the right or the left. The driver decided to swerve out of the way right in front of me, and without lowering its speed much, steadily came toward me. Its outline grew larger in my vision, and telling myself again that I really needed to get out of the way, I jerked the handlebars in one direction and lost my balance and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out and got one foot caught in the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as a cold sweat broke out in my skin, the driver recklessly spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, came right up to me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened, and the driver came out. You idiot, what are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that.
Oh shit, I don't remember who this is.
I am going to take a shot here.
Yeah?
This is Mio.
Yeah?
This is Mio.
Oh my, look who it is.
It was a woman's voice, and one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her.
You guessed so good. Okay, what chain of reasoning led you to guess that?
Her tone of voice.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically, it was the tone of voice. And the fact that, I don't know. That was it, really. It was just the, oh my. That sounded like something she would say.
Well, Tanagashi's over and she's alive. Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe everything's different this time.
That's what I was saying, though. Like, if she does live through the day, if she and Jiro both live through the day, then I'm pretty sure that means that Shion has some hand in this year's killing. Takano-san.
Good evening. The moon is very pretty tonight, Maebara-kun.
It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Takano-san unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. That smile was, for some reason, uncanny, like she'd seen right through me. And of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling this was the one I wanted to see the least.
What are you doing out so late? And you're soaked and covered in mud, and no umbrella either. What is that, a shovel?
She had come here via car. She wouldn't have known what I was just doing, and yet she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her on to anything lest you dig your own grave.
The rumors say you were playing baseball with a golf club. Is that what the shovel's for, too? You're using it as an umbrella.
I should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out. When I went with Rena to go digging for treasure at the dam, we forgot this there.
And you went to get it in this downpour.
I left my house, I didn't think it would rain, so...
Oh, it's been raining for a while, though. You've been out for quite some time, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I was kind of wandering around, I suppose.
Even so, you came from that direction, didn't you? The dam is in the opposite direction, you know.
Takano-san was certainly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening with me. And as she played her little word game, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess from the situation of what I've been doing. My timing really sucked to run into her of all people, of all times. In the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I'd done so much, and the end was literally right around the corner. So why at the very end did I run into her of all people? What do you do, Keiichi Maebara? You're still holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Takano-san? Even if it would be simple to kill her, dealing with the car she came in afterward would be an issue. I couldn't drive a car. It was completely different from a motorbike. Even if the car was here, as long as there was no proof I killed her. Oh, yes, in tonight's downpour, without any prior planning. All by coincidence, a hit and run. As long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they would never know I killed her. A black flame quietly smoldered and raged in the core of my body.
That's a scary look. Did I tease you too much?
Takano-san started to laugh by herself, then thankfully stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my mind didn't go away.
Leaving that aside, how long are you planning on crawling on the ground with your bike like that? Would you mind moving out of the way?
If I moved, she would leave. So I tried to get the bicycle up and out of the way, but then twisted my ankle in it and fell over. Oh, shit! Ah! There was a sharp pain in the ankle I twisted. This was nonsense. A sprained ankle now?
Oh my. Are you alright? Did you twist your ankle?
Takano-san squats down and takes a good look at the ankle I keep rubbing. She compares it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was.
Can you stand?
I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. So all I could do to shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Takano-san looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door, then gave me her shoulder to stand up with.
I'll take you home. I do feel bad, since it's almost like I hit you.
Ugh, I'm sorry.
I wouldn't just leave you there. It's a good thing I'm a nice person.
Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. Took Takano's hands and sat down in the passenger seat.
I love how Takano-san takes some time to check the time, think about it for a bit, and only then is like...
She wants Keiichi to know she knows,
okay.
But I have a feeling Takano will absolutely is ride or die. She doesn't get her rocks off from having it exposed. She just wants to know.
I don't suppose we could take the bicycle home tomorrow.
I could clearly tell from her face she thought it would be a pain since it would be heavy and would get her car dirty. My bike has the name Maebara written on it. I couldn't leave it out here like this. Can you somehow put it in the car? I sort of need it.
The trunk is already full. If I put it in the back seat, it'll get the seats dirty with mud. Well, given how you're already in here, it's already dirty, I suppose.
I turn back to the back seat and see someone's folding bicycle there already. Still look big enough to fit my bike in there as well. Hey, that's Jiro's bike, probably.
Probably.
My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thought seemed to get through to her.
All right. I'll put it in here for you. I'll be really nice, but just for tonight, okay?
Takano-san continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but couldn't she do something about that eerie smile of hers? Was she the one that... Was she the one that arranged to kill Tomatake and make herself disappear? We talked about how it seemed like that might have been part of it, since it seems like she definitely, falsified some of her own records. But
how and why?
How is not hard. She's a nurse. She's
no,
in the medical...
No. I mean, I don't mean the records. I mean what you just proposed. But how and why?
I don't know. Maybe she has an idea that the murders aren't happening again this year and she wants them to continue.
That'd certainly be one reason. Murder enthusiast unhappy that the chain of murders is stopping and is like, okay, time for some copycat killings.
Yep. Even more importantly than the bike, I didn't want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could be directly connected to the buried body. Sorry to ask another favor. Could you get my shovel too? Takano-san gave me a clearly dubious expression.
Your shovel. That's fine with me. Is it important?
The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually, outlasted by my silence, Takano-san gave a short shrug and sighed.
All right, I understand. You need your shovel, right? You don't need to make such a mean face.
Takano-san brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road. I clutched it like I'd never let go of it again. So he still left a clearly dug grave and a shovel out there, but the shovel doesn't attach to his name. The grave is likely to fill in with water and mud overnight. Maybe he gets away with it. And that's also the shovel that shovel wasn't used to dig the grave that the body is actually in, so I don't know. Really, it's all going to be about does Takano talk? Does Takano?
Indeed. Okay, let's be off. Maebara-kun, you live at the Maebara Mansion, don't you?
Why does everyone call my house the Maebara Manor?
Because it's actually a mansion. It must be nice to be rich.
As she spoke, Takano-san pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making a skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. From the rearview mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness.
Reed?
Huh? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that just now? Takano-san suddenly tried to say something to me, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Takano-san said the same thing one more time.
The body. How well was it buried?
I thought my heart might beat out of my chest, but I didn't let it show. But my lungs were squeezed tight and I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about?
When burying bodies in mountains like these, you have to bury it fairly deep, because wild dogs will often smell the corpse and dig it out. Some human bone a wild dog brings back in its mouth leads to an incident being uncovered. The police head out to a stretch of mountains. It actually happens pretty often, you know.
Pound, pound, clang, clang. Huge rusted bells start ringing in my head. I buried it so deep I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found. The answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with, I couldn't deny having possibly buried it too close to the surface. No, wait, that's not wait anyway. This woman, how does she know? She just passed by here in her car by coincidence, right? We ran into each other by coincidence. If she had been watching the entire thing from the trees. And once I left, she came back in her car? It didn't make logical sense. So then why? Keiichi Maebara, that's it. You need to kill her. Or she's just fucking around with you because it's really funny.
And she would.
Yeah,
she would.
Here's the thing: is that I could believe she figured it out, but also I could believe that this is just her sense of humor.
Schrodinger's Takano. Both of these explanations are equally her.
My entire body reawakened, and I could feel my pupils dilate. I couldn't possibly beat her to death with the shovel in such a small car. I don't use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I strangled her, we might get into an accident. Then suddenly, Takano-san turned and looked at me.
What? No witty retorts?
For a moment, I was surprised. What was she talking about?
It would seem we're not a very good match.
Takano-san said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. I repeated the words she'd said a few times in my head and finally realized she'd meant it as an off-color joke. I didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving the car like this, I couldn't kill her. I'd have an even harder time doing it when we got back to my house. That moment we met, that had been my best chance. To have missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Takano-san didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? With everything that happened today, I managed to pull it off, and at the very end of it all, I just had to go home and go back to sleep. What bad luck. As my sleepiness gradually overtook me, the anxiety I felt steadily started to matter less and less. Is this all right, Keiichi Maebara? You probably should not leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm just tired. She stepped on the brakes, and I jerked against my seatbelt. Hoi! That woke me up. I thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. Looked out the window, and there was a big building with faint lights on. It was really dark out, but I knew immediately it was my house.
I'll go get your folks for you. Would you mind the place for a few moments while I'm gone?
Don't make fun of me, please. Besides, look, I'm fine now. I can walk by myself.
Oh my, you were in such pain before that you had to get me to carry you. Did you just want a pretty lady to be nice to you?
She's my favorite. She's such a shit.
Yeah, she sucks.
She sucks so hard. As Takano-san spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I'd twisted. There was still some pain and a little weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wound was, I first regretted this whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I still could have gotten the option of killing Takano-san right then and there. There probably wasn't much doubt that Takano-san was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. If she knew about everything happening with Sadako, she might have even guessed I'd killed somebody. Click. Takano-san opened the passenger side door for me.
You're sure you don't need my shoulders? I wouldn't mind doing it for you again.
I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car by myself. The rain was still pretty intense. Got my bicycle out of the back seat. A bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I let Takano-san hold the umbrella over me, then pushed my bicycle up to the front door. Thank you very much. I'll be fine now. My ankle hurt so much earlier, and it still did, but it aggravated me that it hadn't even been that bad. It was really seriously terrible luck.
All right, I will be leaving then. Keep it a secret that we had a nice evening drive together by ourselves, okay?
Either that, or she absolutely needs Keiichi to keep this secret as well, right?
Especially from Jiro-san.
Jiro-san? Oh, she meant Tomatake. Suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Jiro Tomatake then. And then the other bike, the folding one in the back seat that I didn't care about at first, suddenly came to mind.
Hey, excuse me, you're from Hinamizawa, right?
The day before yesterday, as I walked near the dam half asleep, Tomatake-san and talked to me. The bicycle he'd been riding, it was that one. That bicycle in the back belongs to Tomatake-san, doesn't it? Takano-san's eyes, I think they might have sharpened for a moment.
And why do you think that?
I saw it when I met him before. The frame stood out to me.
But wouldn't that be odd? Do you think it's possible for this to be Jiro-san's bike?
Odd? What? Why? Takano-san, her hair elegantly fluttering, peers into my eyes.
Well, there are no bed and breakfasts in Hinamizawa, are there? Jiro-san would need to be staying in town.
Is that so? Well, I guess that's right, huh?
You can't really walk from town to Hinamizawa, can you? And there are no buses either. You at least need a bicycle.
She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro-san was riding a bike.
For Jiro-san's bicycle to be stowed in my car, and him not in there, that would be strange, wouldn't it?
No, it just means he's sleeping at yours. I'm gonna be honest, that absolutely didn't strike me as weird because I was like, oh yeah, he's just at her place. Either that or he's already dead, one of the two.
Maybe both. Either or.
Porque no los dos.
It would mean Jiro-san was in Hinamizawa without a bike. I'd have to have left Jiro-san somewhere and put his bike in the car, wouldn't I? It wouldn't make sense.
As she spoke, her eyes like a hawk. She made eyes like a hawk, but unfortunately I didn't really understand what was so odd. What about that is odd? Aren't you and Tomatake-san friends? I only think it'd be strange for there to be some reason you had his bike in your car.
But it would be. What I mean is, Jiro-san and his bicycle being in different places in Hinamizawa wouldn't make sense. And for those reasons, it means this bicycle can't be his. Do you understand now?
Takano-san's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, that vague dreadfulness, I didn't like it at all, but the most wild instinctive part of me warned me not to pry.
That's my bicycle. Jiro-san picked it out for me, though, so I can't deny that it looks alike.
Oh, I see now. Thought it looked similar.
You and I never saw each other tonight.
And now she was talking about something completely different. What are you talking about?
You and I never saw each other tonight.
I stayed there not knowing what to say, and Takano-san repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again.
You and I never met this night.
You and I.
You and I never saw each other tonight.
Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew because I'd killed a person with my own hands before. Before I came to the conclusion that I only had one chance to beat this woman to death to keep her quiet, and I couldn't hesitate. So I could tell she'd arrived at the very same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. I wish I had never met this woman. The faint sense like a rotten smell drifting from this woman was no doubt the exact same sense that I was giving off right now. The very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at taking a human's life for a purpose, one that only those who have risen above everything had. Actually, maybe I should have called it nausea. It meant I didn't know how to explain this very well, but Takano-san was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anyone know was here. Someone who no one would have wanted to see. And now that we had, we could calmly pretend as though we had never met. Yes. Which meant that, just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so we'd never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Takano-san's suggestion was extremely practical. And that I couldn't outright refuse. If that's fine with you, then sure, whatever. You and I didn't meet this night.
You're right. That would be best for you too, wouldn't it?
Why do you think that?
Are you seriously asking me that? You can't figure that out on your own, boy.
She cut me off with a condescending word, boy. Right in front of my house, in a place most unsuited to killing, yet there was a frozen thirst for blood coming out of both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out of my body. That's fine. If you want me, then you could come any time. When I made up my mind, she shook her hair elegantly and turned on her heel.
Good. I am a kind person, after all.
What was good? How? Because she was a kind person? Was that it? I didn't get it. Takano-san got into her car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I performed a massive feat. The killing of Sadako's uncle, and yet I did not feel any accomplishment. On the holy night of Oyashiro-sama's curse, in which the taking of another's life was allowed, on the terribly rainy night when the demons wandered as agents of Oyashiro-sama's will, the demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Takano-san through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late. That very first moment we saw each other had been my best chance. And now that we had parted like this, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped her horn quickly, and then her car drove away into the deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. And as long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something and fly face first into a tree and die. It wasn't a delusion, a wild flight of fantasy. It was an earnest wish. It was a command. Die. Die! Keep your mouth shut for eternity. Because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Takano-san's taillights disappeared into the utter darkness. Her car's lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain and was inaudible now. I, too, turned on my heel to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking toward the front door. It was covered in mud, and I made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish, squish. Don't worry, Keiichi Maebara. Squish, squish. She will die. Squish, squish. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burned to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell itself until she's roasted as much as she deserves. I wish. I really do. Squish. Huh? Just now I hadn't taken a step, and yet a footstep. Without emotion, I turned around. If there was a footprint that wasn't my own, then it was obvious someone else was behind me. Was someone else there? I was sick of this. Wherever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time I would kill them. I'd kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But fortunately, there was no one there, except for the Foley artist playing the sleigh bells. I wasn't going to have to kill any more people tonight. This night, I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep each time I stopped, I put it down to me just being tired.
So, where do you think things go from here, huh?
Good fucking God. Hold on, let me drink some water. My throat is raw. Fire from Hell and Victim of the Fifth Year are our new
Right,
tips.
we should do
Yeah,
the
let's
tips.
do the tips first. Fire from Hell. Hello. You need the you need the hospital or the fire department?
The fire department.
Is there a fire or some other accident? Please speak slowly and calmly.
I think it's a fire. This is the rest area on the redacted highway. I see a ton of fire and smoke coming up from the mountains behind us. Nobody goes back there, so I don't know why anything got lit on fire. Anyway, I figured I should let you know. It could turn into a forest fire.
I understand. I need to know exactly where you are, so please tell me your name, a phone number we can use to get in touch with you, and the exact location of the fire.
Notice from the fire department headquarters, we have a report of a suspicious fire on the western slopes of the redacted mountain. Given its distance from the road, it could be a couple's bonfire or someone unlawfully burning trash. The location is deep in the woods. No homes in the area, but the fire could spread. Immediately go to the site to verify.
Is this the fire station? This is the Redacted District Fire Department branch. We arrived moments ago at the reported area. Fire confirmed to be a burning oil drum left in the mountains. Fire's calming and there's no chance it will spread. And, well, in the oil drum, I think it might be a person, like a person burned with kerosene or something. I think maybe we should get the police over here.
There's no mistaking it. This is a person.
So this really does feel to confirm that Mio was the one murdering her boyfriend and faking her own death.
Maybe so.
But is it a copycat thing? Well, because the thing is, it still doesn't fully clarify everything. Because on my original interpretation, they were part of the original conspiracy. On my really early theory, they would have been Tomatake would have been part of the original conspiracy that murdered the foreman back when. So is this Mio doing a copycat killing to make sure the thing doesn't die? Or is this just people who know what their job is doing their part for this year?
I don't know. I mean, I do know.
Well, I know you know, but like, I'm talking aloud. This year's curse, then?
That's what it looks like. He kills them differently every year, but this is particularly conspicuous, isn't it?
Clawing out your own throat. That ain't normal.
Let's leave the rest of the old man in forensics. I'm sure he'll find some suspicious drugs. He always does. He's quite good at finding the suspicious drugs wherever we need him to.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Oh, Oishi-san, Komiyama-san and the others have arrived. Oishi-san, much appreciated. Well, it would seem we have a pretty crazy one this year.
Yeah, we've been outsmarted. I was absolutely under the impression that Teppei Hojo would get killed tonight.
So that's fun.
Did he think it? But why does he think that, though?
I know,
does he
right?
think that because he got wind of Keiichi's plan? Or does he think that because Teppei being adjacent to the killing of his partner that they had tied to the S group made him suspicious?
One wonders.
Yeah, see, that's the important thing is why he thinks it was Teppei.
Who is the deceased?
Jiro Tomatake. All right. Jiro Tomatake, a photographer with a habit for coming to Hinamizawa a few times a year. We didn't even have him marked.
I wonder what happened. Did they realize we were watching the Hojo residence the whole time and decide to switch their target?
Wait, what? How were you watching the Hojo residence the whole time? Then that means you watched him come out and watched Keiichi beat him? What? They were watching the Hojo residence the whole time. Hold on, I'm trying to think of what that means. Did Keiichi kill a body double? No, that'd be stupid. They're watching the Hojo residence the whole time. Keiichi looked at his face and was convinced it was him.
Mm-hmm.
So, when did they start watching the Hojo residence?
I don't know.
What the fuck? I don't know how to... Okay. Maybe. We should have flubbed this one, huh?
And there are no problems with Tepe Hojo.
Cole wrecked. His daughter left for the festival in the evening. And a little while later, he left on his motorbike. His daughter came back first and... Wait. He ain't come back yet. Is he still out drinking somewhere?
Oishi-san, are you there? Call from Chief Takasugi. He's on the line in car 1.
I see.
So they were watching the house, but they weren't watching the locations further up the road from the house, apparently.
Oh, that's fun.
So,
oh man, that was a lot.
Yeah. So we immediately got clarification again. We've got the 2 murders again. Not the 2 murders, the murder and the disappearance.
Yep.
We've got the body in the burning oil drum, and we've got Tomitake found with his throat clawn out.
It seems pretty damn clear that Mio was the one that made it happen. And that it looks like Mio made it happen. And if I had to guess, I'd say she made it happen. And again, I don't know whether or not she's a copycat or whether Jiro was a part of the original conspiracy and asked her to do this, set it up this way for him. But either way, it's clear that Mio was the one carrying it out.
I love the moment when she has to take like 5 different ways to word "we didn't see each other tonight" to get it through Keiichi's head.
Yep.
Like, fucking kids these days don't even know how to indirectly talk about the murders they just committed.
Oh, man. Oh. But either way, I think that answers the question about who's responsible. We don't know what her connection is to the the other important thing to note is we don't currently know what her connection to the Sonozakis is.
Mm-hmm.
She seems to be on friendly terms with Shion.
Yeah.
Right? Shion got her access to the place she wanted to be.
Yeah.
Perhaps in exchange for making that murder go well, but... It's a lot to think about. We've both gotten some answers, but also haven't gotten anything that explicitly clarifies some things, you know?
Yeah, we've just gotten answers that make things more confusing. It's like, so
well, I
what
mean,
if...
it's not confused. It's not so confusing as that I don't have any explanation for it. It's confusing in that it's still like between one of 2 possible answers right now.
But also that it's one of the least satisfying answers for who does this. Like, there's a tidy little theory, like, oh, the Sonozakis are doing this all, and that makes it very easy to explain. But if what we see here, what we seem to see here is indeed what's happening, then we've got this far more confusing theory where, like, oh, the nurse is randomly in on this and doing stuff.
Is that again? This doesn't explicitly deconfirm the fact that it's the Sonozakis either, because she could be working on their behalf, or as I've speculated before, Tomitake could have known that this was happening tonight and trusted Mio to carry it out, or Mio is just doing a complete copy. The only thing that removes the Sonozakis entirely from it is Mio doing a complete copycat killing. And even then, we have to wonder how she knows there wasn't going to be a murder this year.
Also, sidebar, there's another thing that would remove the Sonozakis entirely from it, which would be just if
They
our
didn't do
theory
it.
was that they were part of it is incorrect, and if Mion was telling the truth at the beginning of this, we don't know for sure that she isn't.
I don't know that I buy that. I do think to a degree. I think maybe that's where the false blind is, that Mio is, or the Sonozakis at least, are connected to the other murders. And that's why they're able to get patsies to take down the false for everything. And why the specific people are. And I would find it very hard to believe that Mio, someone who is groomed to be the head of the family, isn't at least aware on some level that her family is killing people because they're a Yakuza family. Even if it's not, like, I don't have a problem believing she's got her fingers in murder. I guess part of it is, to what degree is she involved? Is she involved as far as she knows it, or she's directing it? Is Shion really killing people just to get her rocks off and torturing them, or right? Like, what's the situation here? I don't think it's as clean as they're involved entirely or they're not involved at all. I think they are still involved. Though to what end, or to what degree, might be up for debate. Anyway, fucking great chapter to come back on. Jesus Christ, that was bleak. We'll see you all next time, everyone.
Peace.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.